All right, welcome to Against All Odds, part of the Extra Points Podcast Network. Oh, sorry, Ricky, I wanted to let you know we're posting this on July 4th week, all right? Actually,
July 4th? Okay, beautiful.
Yes, July 5th, my actual birthday, we're going to post this on. So
all right, one second here. Let me raise this just a little bit.
Yeah. What do you want to do?
Because I feel like I'm hunching over for the camera. Yeah, this will be a little better.
All right.
Here
we go. All right, welcome to Against All Odds, part of the Extra Points Podcast Network. It's Tuesday, July 5th, my birthday. No degenerate trifecta today. I gave myself a break from Harry on my birthday. You got to live a little. You really do. But I do have a very special treat. As a child of the 70s, I have the foremost authority on everything 70s nostalgia. His Twitter account is a must follow. He is the Rod Carew of Twitter, I would say. The highest batting average of laughs amongst all of them. Let's all hop in the station wagon and meet the man behind Super 70s Sports. Ricky Cobb is here. What's happening, Ricky?
Sal, it is a great day anytime that I meet up with you. My compliments on the headwear today. You're looking even more handsome than usual.
Yes, I am wearing thank you for the compliment. I'm wearing a Super 70s hat. It's one of the many great items you could, and I'm going to plug the shit out of this, super70sports.com. I'm sorry, super70sportsstore.com. Now, you got a bunch of double S's in there between 70s and sports and sports and store. But do yourself a favor, go on there, find it. I love it. I mean, you make me laugh 5 times a day. I feel like I could buy a shirt every now and then or a hat. By the way, I think I would be off Twitter if not for you. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. Do people tell you that? Do other people tell you that?
Yeah, I actually get that pretty often. And I spend so much more time creating content on Twitter that I'm not really browsing Twitter probably a whole heck of a lot. But sometimes when I do, I kind of realize where they're coming from. You know, I provide a sanctuary, I think, from some of the day-to-day fatigue that you're going to find on Twitter with people bickering over this and that and whatever the controversy of the day is.
Yeah, and so that's a good thing. You're so busy creating content that you don't have to inject yourself into this nonsensical world we live in aside from that. But by the way, someone did try to, I lose track of the years. It might've been 5 years ago or 6 months ago. Someone tried to steal this account, this wonderful account from you, right? Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. That was a pretty harrowing experience for me. Not the best, right in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
As well. So I figure I survived that. So it only made me stronger. But yeah, it definitely gave me an increased appreciation. I was out of the account for almost 2 weeks. I wasn't even a blue check at the time. So I didn't get the fast track remedy to my problem, maybe that a blue checker would get. But I hope to never find myself in that position again. But yeah, that sucked.
I remember you freaking out because you did, like you said, you had to start from scratch, and your most loyal jumped right in there. I think you had like almost 30,000 of your 600,000 right away. But yeah, it is scary shit. Listen, I think like the January 6th hooligans should be prosecuted, but I'm more concerned with this guy. Did anything happen? I'm assuming it's a man who stole this from you.
I don't know who did it. I think that it was a foreign attack. Unlike January 6th, I think the culprits were somewhere overseas and
foreign, like Louis Tiant foreign, or foreign someone we don't know,
like the upstart golf tour foreign,
the live tour, yeah.
The same people that got Phil Mickelson in trouble were fucking with my account.
I was looking just at your name, Ricky Cobb, and it really is kind of perfect for all of it. I know you're a huge baseball fan. You really look like you could go steal bases and go off and spike a foreigner in the kneecap at the same time with a name like Ricky Cobb, but it worked out perfectly. I do want to set up for people who aren't familiar, and shame on you if you aren't, with Ricky's account. So let's go over the tropes, and you tell me if I've missed any, right?
All right.
All right. So there's... the 70s, it's mostly 70s. You'll throw 80s in there and 90s. It's retro. It's a retro account. And then some a-hole will call you out on it. It's like, stick to 70s. And it's like, no, you don't tell me what to do. This is my account. You snap right back at. Do you hate those people? Do you block them immediately?
Sometimes it amuses me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it pisses me off. Sometimes I block them. Sometimes I think about responding and I don't. I think I've learned to grin and bear it a little bit better. I've mellowed slightly. I don't know if that's what my audience wants, because it seems like when I take somebody out behind the woodshed and smack them around a little bit, the audience likes that.
I like it. I'll speak for me and some of my idiot friends. I like it. And when they get on you for using profanity and you come back 10 times as strong with basically a Scarface impression, I love it. I love every bit of it. But okay, so let's go over the tropes. You tell me again if I missed anything. In the 70s, parents didn't give a shit about their kids, right?
No shits to give about anything. My mother was overprotective by 70s standards, and probably they'd probably take me away from her in 2022. The goalposts have shifted so far since the 70s on what constitutes an overprotective parent.
And you illustrate this runs the gamut from, well, I would say like school equipment, like playground equipment, where it was just like an abyss of like, I don't know how there wasn't 7 concussions in every playground every day, right? I mean, explain some of these ridiculous mazes that they had built for kids on basically we used to call them monkey bars, but what you show is just spectacular.
Darwinian.
Yeah.
In a word, Sal, some of the equipment, a lot of us will remember the merry-go-rounds where you got as many kids on there as you could. And then the biggest kid, the kid that had been held back a couple of times would start propelling it with great force. And you held on for dear life. And if you got thrown off, you got thrown off. They treated the wounded after recess, and the survivors went back to class. Some of the slides it's unbelievable. Not only were they setting out cooking in the sun, hotter than a 1975 McDonald's apple pie.
Oh, that's another one. Yep.
Flesh, the smell of burning 10-year-old flesh, and no guardrails of any kind. Some of these almost look like theme park attractions. Just a tall ladder, basically, and we just left it to kids to climb up there, not push each other off. It's unfathomable by today's standards, where everything's plastic, everything's rounded. We've got mulch and rubber and crash pads everywhere because we wouldn't want Austin to get a scratch or Tyler to skin his knee. But back in our day, the playground equipment was apparently designed by the same people that were making instruments of war.
Right. And to your point, you conclude by saying, I probably didn't work out great for some of these kids, but a lot of times it made us stronger. Maybe not necessarily the playground equipment, but you show pictures of, I don't know, just the cars. For instance, I mentioned station wagons, no seatbelts, fathers feeding their sons beer, right? Fathers standing up in roller coasters. It was a different time. And you think like they didn't really care about our feelings as much. Let's just say that, right?
You were expected to walk it off. Rub some dirt on it and walk it off, son, was a real thing back then. And look, maybe there's a happy medium somewhere between the 70s and today. But as I've done this for going on almost 8 years now, I have come to appreciate that some of the things in the 70s, maybe we were closer to right on than we are. I think we've evolved away in certain aspects culturally from common sense in at least some ways. And of course, time marches on, some things get better, but not everything gets better. sometimes things in certain areas of life can get worse. And I think maybe we were better off back in the days when we had more freedom. We were able to explore. Certainly, we were outside more often than kids today because we didn't have 1,000 things to take up our attention in this digital age.
Right.
And so we looked to entertain ourselves outside, and we had not a heck of a lot of parental supervision. So it got kind of dicey sometimes. And you're right. A lot of my followers will attest to the fact that they feel like they're better off for it. And as you sort of alluded to earlier, the kids that it didn't work out so well for, well, they're not here to register their complaints, I guess.
That's true. Yes, unfortunately, they're not. Yeah. But to your point, and you brought it up, like we had no choice. We had to be outside. And a lot of times our parents didn't care or didn't know where we were until 7 o'clock or maybe later. I don't want to make this like this was 100 years ago. But the other thing is, this is what we had to do because, as you point out so many times, the gaming systems were ridiculously simple. And while we were excited to play Pong or, you stepped it up with Space Invaders, I think you showed the other day, forget it. That was Disney World for anybody. But it was shit what we were presented with video wise.
It was terrible. And at the time, though, right, we compare the past to what we know. I always say that I don't want to know what the cool stuff is going to be 100 years from now, because I would probably just curl up in the fetal position and feel sorry for myself at how primitive my life is. But in 1980, playing Space Invaders on an Atari 2600 was state-of-the-art baller entertainment. And I even remember when Pacman was finally released by Atari, the home version of Pacman. And even at the time, you knew that it wasn't very good. It was just sort of donk, 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 donk as he went around the screen rather than waka waka, because I guess that's all that the technology would afford. But
by the way, his mouth wouldn't go upwards when you moved the Pac-Man upwards. It would just go up, with his mouth still chewing to the side, it would go up. Like that was, they couldn't even get that right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody who doesn't remember that, after you watch this, go to YouTube and just pull up Atari 2600 Pac-Man, and you'll see what we're talking about. It was hot garbage, but I'll be damned if we didn't spend hours in front of the TV having the time of our lives.
Well, speaking of hot garbage, the adapter would become so hot. And, my grandmother, my father's mother, actually Jimmy Kimmel's grandmother too, would play for hours on end after she would cook. Or before she would cook, after all of your favorites, Family Feud and, Password and all those, she would go and play Pac-Man, and she didn't realize Jimmy and I, more Jimmy, would be playing for her because there were two controls, right? There was control left and control right. And she was bad at it, and she'd get very frustrated. So Jimmy would control her Pac-Man. And by then we memorized the maze so that we could at least get to the second or third board. So she was excited, but it ended up being a bad thing because I think we blew up a few of the, I guess you would call it adapters in the wall. They would get hot pretty fast, and they were unforgiving. Do you remember that?
I remember it well. You always had to be on channel 3.
Yes.
Right. That was at least that's the way mine was. And, and it's so funny. Some things never change. Like even now with the more sophisticated gaming systems, which are distant relatives from what you and I are talking about, my kids will have me try to play and laugh at how I can't do it right. But in my defense, there's like 24 things on the controller nowadays. Back in our day, the thing that's amazing to me looking back on it is there was, at least with the Atari, there's one stick and one button.
Red button.
Our parents and grandparents were still overmatched. It was like we had put them in the cockpit of a 747. But they didn't grow up with any video games at all. So I guess it's understandable when you think about what their childhoods were like.
Exactly. Yes. What was the first sports game that you remember being cool? Like, again, we were glad to have anything. And I think the basketball was one-on-one and baseball was awful. Baseball, what was it? It was like Activision then started making what we thought decent sports games. But I think the first one I remember, and even this was shit, was in television football. George Plimpton used to do the commercials for it. Do you remember one that you were like, all right, now we've arrived?
I do remember that in television's graphics, as George Plimpton so sophisticatedly informed us, we're superior. Still pretty bad.
Really lame. Yeah.
Look back on it now, but I think the Activision games. You're right. I remember. I liked Activision tennis.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Activision skiing.
Skiing was good. Yep.
Which was a pretty good one, but. For my money, the best sports games when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, it's still, for me, those Mattel handheld electronic games with the red blips.
Right.
Even now, if I have an opportunity to play one of those, and heck, I think half of them still work. They were built to last somehow, those games, but I know they've re-released some of them, and I got a football game for my daughter, and I sat down and I played that thing for a good hour, and it brought back a lot of memories. But
yeah, and those were just like 6 red dots, and 2 of them would block and disappear as the block was picked up, and then one would run through, and across the entire field was 10 yards. And if you could do that for 80 yards, you would get a touchdown. But if you were playing somebody, you could also cheat. If you were stuck on 4th down, you could go through a couple of possessions if they weren't standing nearby. And right, you could like kind of screw around and get the ball back. Yeah.
Gamesmanship was a big part of it for sure. And the first version of it, you couldn't even pass.
That's right. You couldn't pass.
Football 2, you could do little screen pass. Football 2 was kind of like a Matt Nagy the playbook. Yeah. It was a lot of screen passes and running, but we were having the time of our life anyway.
Well, and then because before that, what did we have? Electric football, the worst game ever put together. In fact, for the people I want put away, I would put a number 1 on the list, the asshole who stole your account a couple years back. Number 2, the guy who invented electric football, and 3, we'll put the January 6th insurrectionists. But that never worked, the electric football. You would line these guys up, you turn it on, and they would buzz around on this metal field. And I don't know, the running back was supposed to gain yards that way, like that. Nobody moved where they were supposed to move.
I think the insurrection actually made more sense than electric football. It was it's one of those deals where the running back would go in circles, but it looked so good before you started the play. It was a thing of absolute beauty. And I always convinced myself that the next play was going to be the one where it kicked in and it was going to look like a real football game. And it never happened. And I still don't know how to complete a pass.
Oh, no way. It's stupid.
The little foam ball, it was lost within 10 minutes. The dog ate it. It was gone. And I don't think I ever completed a pass.
Yeah, at least the commercials for the other toys, like the Evel Knievel thing, like they could make it so that it really did jump over a creek here, this never had a chance. I remember even the commercial looking like, this is a little sketchy, but everybody had this game. It was really something else. I'm trying to think what other games. Yeah. So, cause I bought the Atari, it was like, you can get it for like $55 and you plug in an adapter, and I thought it'd be cool, show the kids what I had to grow up with. But my perspective was not like, look how good you have it. Mine was like, you're going to love combat. You're going to love asteroids. You're going to love Space Invaders. And you would have thought I lined my 3 boys up and kicked them all in the nuts separately. I mean, they spent exactly 6 minutes playing this pitiful game.
It's funny how our memories work sometimes, right? I look back on some of these things and I think about all the hours and hours and hours of fun that I had playing Atari. And we got one of these little cheap, I think we bought it at Walgreens or something. It was like $20 and it had 50 or 60 old Atari games on it, and you just plugged it straight into the TV.
Right,
and
that's what I had. Yep.
I was telling my kids how great it was going to be, and it's got this on it, it's got that on it, and not only did they not like it, I kind of realized that maybe my childhood wasn't as good as I thought it was, because I suppose I've gotten spoiled since then, because some of the games that I loved at the time is pretty rough.
Yeah, this is like, what am I arguing for? This is garbage. Go back to watching Mr. Beast. You're fine. But like you said, there were things that were better. I'm not sure this goes like you showed TV dinners. You could count on TV dinners, right? You show lunch ladies, and you make a joke about it. It's really funny. I'm gonna botch it. I'll take one of these heroes over a DoorDash delivery driver any day. But I could taste the pizza. How much would you give to have a slice of that pizza? Every Friday you would get pizza from the lunch ladies.
Oh,
I remember it being very, very cheesy, but satisfying at the same time.
It was the school equivalent of a ballpark hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it was. But hot dogs taste better at the ballpark. I don't know why. I don't know how, but you can confirm this, right? A ballpark hot dog is the best hot dog. It's the atmosphere. And so something about those rectangle pizzas, usually probably, I think back at my school, you always got the corn that day, pizza and corn. It's What's more American than that? I don't know.
And the milk,
sense,
the small milk. Yeah.
That's what it was. And absolutely, even the kids who brought their own lunch were jealous on pizza day.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, I often think about this, probably too much, but how much was lunch? Do you remember, like the lowest it was for you?
Oh God, it was super cheap. What was it? Like under $1, right?
Oh, I think 55 cents is what I remember.
Yeah.
Everyone was outraged when it went to 65 cents. But how much would you want to be a show off to step in there now and just be like, give me 10 slices of pizza? I got $5.50 burning a hole in my my pocket here.
If I could go back, if there was a time machine and I could just go back for one day, maybe a Friday, treat myself to a few slices of pizza, take the quarters that were left over to the arcade after school.
Yeah.
You could have a worse day than that if you wanted to time travel.
Absolutely. So those are amongst many things you make fun of. Now, in the sports world, baseball players, athletes in general, they did not give a shit about how they pose for their baseball card photos, right? You love that you get a lot of mileage out of this.
Yeah, the old school cards are a lot of fun. A lot of bad airbrushing. A lot of guys who looked inexplicably old.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the days of hard drinking and smoking, and you had some 26-year-olds in the major leagues who looked like they had 4 sons in high school.
Right.
And I don't know exactly how that worked, but the classic cards, things like that of that era, I get a lot of mileage from it.
Yeah, and just like, I mean, I love the Johnny LeMaster one is I know that's a go-to of yours. He just looks like he just woke up and has nothing going and complete whiteout in his face. And you're like, what did you say? He's deficient of every vitamin known to man or something like that.
Yeah, deficient in every vitamin and mineral known to mankind. I mean, I'm worried about it. Just go to the doctor.
Yeah, he didn't look good.
I'm concerned for your health. This is bigger than baseball,
right?
And they're running him out there every day, hitting 8, going 0 for 3, and playing average defense. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but every team had 1 or maybe 2, maybe 3, 3 or 4 if you count the guys on the bench, infielders who were doing well to hit their weight, and it was real important. They could turn a double play, so they were valuable men.
Oh, I rooted for the Mets in the late 70s. And so it was Felix Millan, it was Frank Tavares, it was Doug Flynn. You were lucky if one of those 3 hit like 240. I remember Doug Flynn had 60 RBIs one year. It was like game 160, and Bob Murphy just losing his shit about it. Like, wow, 60, that's something else. Yeah.
That's like a 100 plus RBI year for a normal human being.
Yeah. Oh, he'd get paid Aaron Judge money. Yeah, he would get a ton. And then just the names too that you see on these cards. You don't see any Dick Poles anymore.
You don't see many dicks anymore, period. We finally caught on culturally to the fact that if you call your son Dick, it's going to be a problem for him. So it took a while. There was a lag But unfortunately, I think our society's worse off for it, Sal.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more dicks out there. Maybe you think Dick will ever make a comeback?
No, you're right. I hadn't thought of it that way. I'd love to see more dicks out there too. Yeah.
I want to see some dicks.
I can't believe it. Who was the last? Yeah, you'd have like Dick Williams, Dick Pole, Dick Allen, right? Yeah. There's not a lot. There's Dickies, right? Or Dickie. There's not even too many of those.
You don't see it. I remember Dick Davis.
Mm-hmm.
I think outfielder with Milwaukee. I know we're probably forgetting a few off the top of our head, but it was there were a lot of dicks back in those days, and it didn't occur to anybody that there was anything funny about it. That's the amazing part. I don't know. Maybe we were less self-aware, but when you're naming a kid, you gotta try to bully proof it. If you can, every parent knows that.
Right. I'm with you. I hadn't thought about it, but and I'm comfortable enough with my sexuality to say, bring back the dicks. Let's see some more.
Bring them back. Sal and I want to see some dicks.
At least on baseball cards. All right. So, and then there's like the football stuff. Like I can never get enough of cars being parked on the field in the background. Why did this happen and why did it stop, do you think?
I'm going to tell you, I honestly don't know. And I like it better that way.
Okay.
I always prefer to create my own alternate history with the tweets,
right.
Suggest why it was. And I have a lot of fun with saying that Kojak was having a stakeout in the end zone, or Joe Pesci and De Niro are going to whack somebody, at halftime or whatever the deal was. But San Diego, Jack Murphy Stadium was one where you see a lot of photos of that. Three Rivers in Pittsburgh is probably the best example. There's actually a great video of Bradshaw throwing a bomb to Lynn Swann.
I remember you posted this.
Overthrows him, and Swann is making a gallant effort for it, and he can't slow down before he comes up on this Plymouth or whatever's parked back there, and he just sprawls out over it, damn near kills himself. And nowadays, though, everything's about load management and making sure that nobody gets hurt. And we had an obstacle course of vehicles for all pro wide receivers to navigate around, and it never occurred to anybody that might make for a bad return on investment.
Well, I used to think it was like a prize, right? Like win this brand new Daihatsu Charade or something, and they'll put it in the end zone, or not in the end zone, but behind the end zone to showcase it. But no, you're right. And then I saw more of yours. I'm like, holy shit, that car is about 15 years old just in that picture. I'm looking at it, and I wonder, did someone go through the wind? Did a Lynn Swann like end up going through a windshield or something? Like, when did they say enough is enough with this? Maybe they decided, hey, we could put seats in here and actually make money, and no one would get hurt.
It just harkens back to this idea that nobody thought that was a bad idea. This went on for years.
Yeah.
Swann's not the only guy that ran into a Buick during the course of that time. The footage, NFL films must have it in the archives somewhere of this, but yeah, there were multiple cars parked out there. And as you said, not new. They weren't in showroom condition by any means. So it's inexplicable. I don't know the real reason for it. And I haven't looked very hard, because sometimes the mystery in leaving it ambiguous is more fun.
Yeah. And by the way, Lynn Swann was nimble. I think he did ballet. You got some of these drunk hardcore receivers probably didn't know what hit him after like a
tight end
literally kicking the tires.
At least it would be a fair fight if it was a tight end, I guess. Maybe he would leave a dent in the car rather than the other way around.
Right. It's like, okay, you have the goalpost in front of the end zone. So once you avoid that, there's going to be a Chevy Cavalier behind about 15 yards beyond that. But if you get by those, you should be in the clear. Go take the football, put it on your mantle.
At Wrigley Field, I think the Bears played at Wrigley until 1970, and they literally had like 8 inches between the back of the end zone and
the wall.
In the wall.
Oh my God.
And there's actually one photo I've tweeted before. I'm not sure if it's the 50s or the 60s. I'm going to guess it's the 60s. There's a band in the end zone. The band is taking up probably 20% of the end zone. So the defense didn't have to worry about a pass or a sweep to the right because the tuba guy is going to help them out with that one. And nowadays, of course, I think everything has to be perfect now. So we need the automated strike zone. We need to review every ball that bounces off of a basketball player's knee at a critical juncture. We've got to challenge this and that. And I don't mean this as an overall commentary on instant replay, but it just goes to show you how in some ways we took it less seriously back in the old days, that we weren't hyper worried about everything being just perfect. And certainly you look at Veteran Stadium and the AstroTurf and Three Rivers, but the Vet, of course, was notorious. It was ACL roulette. Every time they kicked off.
I think your comment is, I tore my ACL just looking at this picture or something, right?
Exactly. And again, you would think if Harold Carmichael played for me,
right,
I'd probably want to fix the turf, right. But back in those days, we were just kind of like, well, that's just how it is.
Yeah, and the players union complained, and rightfully so on some of these cases. And then you'll show just like Jack Lambert just jackhammering a quarterback to the ground, and your comment a lot of times is guaranteed there was no penalty incest here, right?
Yeah, in many cases. There's one that I really love that I've tweeted before. It's Bradshaw, and he's scrambling, and he doesn't slide because we hadn't gotten to that point yet, and so Bradshaw's just running, and he goes out of bounds, and he's like a good 3 feet out of bounds. I think it's Bobby Bell from the Chiefs just knocks him into next week. And I think I tweeted it and said, that was a good hit. Bradshaw was still inside the stadium. And,
right.
And that's kind of how we looked at it. And I seriously doubt that there was a flag on that play. The defense got a lot of latitude in the NFL when I was a kid.
Where did you feel like, or maybe you haven't, did you ever feel like you went too far with the tweet?
Oh gosh. Maybe there's been a time or three. I've been pretty lucky because I think anybody who is working in comedy, who is serious about what they do and are trying to do it with some level of skill, sometimes you want to push up against the boundary just to find where the boundary is, right? And there have been times that I've maybe crossed over it for the taste of my audience once or twice, but I'm pretty lucky for as much wild shit as I've tweeted and as many earlobes as I've flicked over the course of the time that I've been doing this. I haven't had the posse come after me for my sins very often.
That's
so
good.
I'm pretty lucky in that regard.
You know what's interesting, and maybe you don't know this, but there's some times of the day where you're not supposed to tweet. Like my social media manager will say, let's say like Russia just invaded Ukraine. Like, hey man, maybe let's just an embargo. No tweets for a couple hours here, right? And then you'll be the only one going strong. And I'm like, all right, I will let Super 70s shoot 4 times. No pun intended, bad pun intended. Before I can go, then I'll know it's time. But you don't keep track of that stuff?
I tune all of that stuff out. So for me, I'm doing what I'm doing, and I hope that it's a service. Nothing would ever be intended to be disrespectful.
Yes. Well, when do people need to laugh the most? When things are the shittiest, right? Yeah.
I mean, look, if World War III were to break out tomorrow, I'm going to be tweeting about Telly Savalas. I just don't give a fuck.
Right. You got to get that Johnny LeMaster tweet out, of course.
Yeah. I mean, because what am I going to do? I'm not going to stop the war. I can't affect the news, but to the extent that I can have an impact, if somebody is stressing out over it and they want to tune that out, and they want to feel some sense of normalcy, then you can always come to Super 70s, where I'm kind of just doing my own thing. So if you're not liking what's on the news, come and look at what I'm doing, because it's not really going to reflect the real world a whole heck of a lot.
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Ricky Cobb, the great Ricky Cobb. All right, so now I saw, Ricky, that Dale Murphy responded to one of your tweets the other day. Do you have, and that must be very, very exciting. Do you have any other childhood heroes ever respond or comment on one of your tweets? You often retweet it when it happens. I can't remember. There's definitely several.
Yeah, there have been a lot. I'm fortunate. Obviously when I was a kid, I wouldn't have been able to conceptualize the internet or Twitter or any of the specifics of where I am in my life. But in terms of the relationships and acquaintances I've made through doing this, I'm absolutely living 15-year-old Ricky Cobb's wet dream every day of my life. And, I'm convinced that one day I'm going to wake up and, I probably have COVID and this was a fever dream, but there have been many. Rod Carew the other day made a very nice, unprompted endorsement of what I do. And
nice.
Just so many guys, from whether you're talking about people from Hollywood or athletes, the people that are in the entertainment industry, people who are serious journalists or politicians in some cases, from all walks of life. I think the thing that I'm proudest of is that somehow or another I have threaded a needle, it seems, where what I do cuts across a lot of different demographics. And I think that it is a place where people who maybe sometimes otherwise wouldn't have a whole hell of a lot in common can come together and commune with each other about topics that are safe for them to engage about without it turning into a bitch fest like so much of Twitter can be.
Right. I'm curious, you probably know the answers. Have you ever looked at the analytics to see who your core audience is? I'm guessing it's not 15-year-old girls, but what do we think? Like guys, fellas our age? I think we're like a year apart. Early 50s?
Yeah, I'm 50. It's predominantly male, predominantly pretty well educated, a mixture financially, of social classes. I do have a lot of faithful female followers for which I'm grateful, but it skews a little Gen X, skews male. Although I have to tell you, I have a lot more younger followers than some people might imagine. Particularly, I think, as the account has gotten a higher profile, it has, I think, started to bring in a wider demographic. I certainly have a lot of millennials that enjoy the content, but I see lots of times college kids, and in some cases, I'll even get emails from people who are in high school or college telling me how much they enjoy it. And I think in some cases, it's sort of a bonding thing between generations, because it opens up the doors of conversation, not only between buddies. I have people tell me all the time that they're shooting texts back and forth between their friends. But, when somebody says that they're doing that with their dad or something like that, that for me is pretty cool, because, if I'm able to sort of bridge a gap and give the generation something to talk about, because, the people from our generation, we remember it and we want to talk about it because we've got a take on these things.
Yeah.
And for the younger folks, it's a whole new world to them that in many cases they're not aware of a lot of this stuff, and they enjoy learning about it. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. What the hell's an Etch-a-Sketch? What's the point? Why would anyone have a television that weighed 750 pounds and you couldn't get it off the floor? Like these is not really questions that there are no answers to it. I do have a question that maybe you do have an answer to. Who was your 70s crush?
Oh, wow. My 70s crush got to be Linda Carter.
Oh yeah.
100% Linda Carter. As a lot of the guys who follow the feed probably know, I like to do Linda Carter breaks periodically. So when I'm in need of an easy tweet that I know is going to get a lot of retweets and likes, and maybe the synapses aren't firing so well that day, and so I just want to put a run on the board, and I can't think of anything funny in the moment. I can always throw up a photo of Linda Carter, and guys our age will respond to that, because Wonder Woman was one of the most beautiful women to ever walk the earth. She's still beautiful.
She was spectacular. Yes, absolutely. Mine was maybe a little less glamorous by Hollywood standards, but Christy McNichol. And then I came to learn that she would not be she wouldn't be interested in me anyway, but not interested in my kind at all, I don't think. But that was because a lot of that we saw, which leads to my next question, is was on Battle of the Network Stars, in which I was going to ask you, if you had to say the greatest sports moment of the 80s, what is it? A lot of people would say, do you believe in miracles? It happened right at the beginning of the 80s, right? The U.S. hockey team beating Russia. But of the 70s, you're getting into, I don't know, you could say Carlton Fisk, the home run, whatever. You could say, Aaron breaking Root's record. But a lot of it was these fringe events, like Evel Knievel jumping the Snake River Canyon, or these dumb Battle of the Network Stars events, right? Was that with Conrad versus Gabe Kaplan? I remember that vividly. And that rings as loud as anything I saw sports-wise in the 70s.
Look, conservatively, Kaplan taking down Robert Conrad.
Yeah.
It's top 10 70 sports for me.
Right.
You got Ali Foreman.
Yeah.
We can put that on the list.
The fights were bigger then. Yep.
Some of your examples that I would agree with. But when controversy erupted at the Battle of the Network Stars, and of course, Howard Cosell, Howard made it, because anything that Howard had one gear, and that gear was whatever you're watching is the most important fucking thing that has ever happened in the annals of sport. And he brought that energy to the Battle of the Network Stars. And so when you have a controversy, I think Telly Savalas was prominently involved. His team wasn't involved, but Telly was stirring the pot. And how can any situation that involves Howard Cosell, Telly Savalas, Robert Conrad, and Gabe Kaplan be anything other than pure television magic?
I was just going to say they have to bring that back, but you don't have those personalities. You don't have Telly. You don't have Howard Cosell working the mic, but it would be tremendous. I just don't. There's such I'm not sure how it would work politically between the networks, right?
They did attempt to bring it back a few years ago. I think Mike Greenberg
on streaming,
was involved, and some other people. But the problem with it is that I think we're too self-aware now. The part of the reason that the Battle of the Network Stars is such amazing theater is because they were actually unironically taking it seriously. And I don't think in 2022 you could get people to volunteer to be a part of a show like that, but there's a little too much wink and a nod,
right?
And that kind of thing. The thing that really made it work is you had these. It was so absurd to watch Epstein from Welcome Back, Kotter, just giving everything he had in a tug of war with Penny Marshall just straining an ovary next to him, just trying to bring glory to ABC. And I don't think that sincerity is available to us culturally anymore at this point in time.
Now it's ballroom dancing. That's as competitive as it gets. And by the way, I think they moved that off ABC. I think it's like on ABC Family or something, Dancing with the Stars, of course. Yeah. All right. So Linda Carter is a great answer. Trying to think the other thing I was going to ask you, where is it? You posted this the other day, and I feel like it was for me because you knew you were coming on the show. What's the dumbest thing you've ever wagered money on? What was I didn't see your answer for this. Do you bet a lot? It's not gonna change at all how much I enjoy your content. Do you get to wager on sports?
I do a little wagering, but no, I have so many things going on in my life, and I know what a degenerate I really am at heart. So it's one of those things people ask me sometimes, they say, well, like if you, did you ever do drugs? And I've always liked Charles Barkley's answer about cocaine. When Chuck said, I've never done cocaine because I was afraid I'd like it too much. And I have always sort of taken that tact with gambling. I used to play a lot of fantasy sports, and I was a fucking maniac. And, it's one of those things, sort of like Tony Montana, right? And, there's a point in your life sometimes where, like, you just think to yourself, my God, who have I become? And I think gambling and Ricky Cobb is a very dangerous combination. Okay. So
that's good. You have to know your limitations.
Gambling, but I am not a big dog such as yourself, Sal.
No, it's listen, it's something to be proud of. I thought only because you posed the question, you had one yourself that you were either ashamed of or what the hell. I mean, I'm betting my kid has a little league game in 2 hours and I'm going to have money on it with a parent like that. We're getting 2.5 runs or something. But yeah, I write my book. I wrote on award shows and all sorts of nonsense. I bet on wrestling. What could be worse than betting on professional wrestling? There's absolutely a scripted outcome. Sorry to blow it for people.
That just adds another layer of fun to it. Now, if I was going to gamble on anything in a serious way, pro wrestling might be it. I don't know where you're doing your pro wrestling gambling, but if you want to let me in on that one,
all right,
you might be able to get me to up my bankroll a little bit if I can do that.
They keep you honest about, first of all, they don't let you get rich off of it. I think they have like a $50 limit on some of it, and it's the offshore accounts. I'll probably lose my FanDuel deal for even discussing this. But back in the day when I bet on wrestling, when I didn't know better, shame on me. Yes, you could do that. And it wasn't always the big favorites that won. They would mix it up there, and like Brock Lesnar, the Undertaker would lose to Brock Lesnar, like, holy shit. He won 21 in a row, whatever it was at WrestleMania. He didn't win the second time. So, yeah, you'll lose just as much money betting on wrestling, believe it or not, than anything else. I do want to tell people, go to super70sportstore.com. I have a bunch of T-shirts, and I wear them proudly. People pull me over there, not in their cars, but they'll say, hey, where'd you get that shirt? And I tell them, super70sportstore.com. I'll be wearing the one that gets a lot of notes is the strikeout. The what do you call it? With the folding chair, with the lawn chair. The lawn chair is the strike zone. Sorry, strike zone, and that's the strike zone for any wiffle ball game, right? Perfect.
It was universal. I just felt that was one of the first shirts that we designed in the store. It was a shirt that I wanted to wear myself. I was selfish with that one. I was like, why is there not a shirt celebrating the most impartial umpire of them all, the shitty Walmart folded chair that you drag out there, always calls a fair game. And I appreciate the fact that that's the shirt that you shouted out. You are a man of taste.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, could that be a compromise between the purists who say no, we need umpires, and the newfangled fans who say no, let's go computerized, and say like maybe the lawn chair, like you said, it never lies. Strike zone. Get it out there.
Straight up. We had automated umpires 40 years ago. So I don't know what has taken MLB so long to come around. We were doing that between freeze pops and our snacks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. And Regal Beagle, any of your favorite TV shows from the 70s and 80s, you have a shirt for it, and it's all terrific. And follow Super 70s Sports. Give it a follow on Twitter. I'm not kidding. You'll laugh your ass off 5 to 7 times a day, and it's terrific. And give back to Ricky at super70sportstore.com. Ricky Cobb, thanks so much for being here, pal. I appreciate it.
Sal, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for your patronage. In addition to being one of America's foremost gambling experts and really just kind of America's best friend, you are in fact one of the greatest customers in the history of Super 70. So a tip of the cap to you, sir. And I think having me on today.
Well, I'll tell you what, you'll know when I hit rock bottom gambling wise, when I stop ordering, like when I go like 2 or 3 weeks without putting in an order. But hopefully at knockwood, that doesn't happen for a while. Thanks again, Ricky. I appreciate it. That'll do it for another episode of Against All Odds. For the great Ricky Cobb, I'm Sal saying so long and happy handicapping.